Week one is officially in full swing with the Bills pulling the week one upset over the Los Angeles Rams. You're listening to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 Dean Radio. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medieros. We have a lot planned for you guys tonight. We're going to talk about opening night and give some takeaways from that matchup. We're going to talk about the rest of the week one matchups and pick which ones are the most intriguing. We're going to touch on Lamar Jackson ending his contract talks with Baltimore without any explanation, without any contract. We're going to get into some fantasy football coverage as well. And joining us to cover all of this, special guest, Aaron Wise. Aaron, welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Okay, so obviously my name's Aaron Wise, and I'm from Illinois, and I'm a big Jet fan, and I'm really excited to be on the show.
Definitely, man. I don't think we've had one Jets fan on before, personal friend of ours, and he's about as big of a homer of a Jets fan as it gets. And he's always looking to talk about his Jets. Is that kind of what you're like? Very, very passionate about your team, or are you like, what? How are you feeling about your Jets this season?
Okay, so this season for me as a Jet fan, I'm actually optimistic about my team. Like honestly, I think the Jets could do something, but we just gotta, I don't know, like, I mean, it really doesn't help that Zach Wilson's out for like 4 more weeks now because like Robert Saleh, he was kind of like trying to dodge questions without really telling the media what was going on until Wednesday. I don't know why he waited till Wednesday finally to tell the media that Zach Wilson's not going to play on week one, which I already kind of knew he wasn't. I was kind of preparing for Joe Flacco, which honestly though, I'm not mad at Joe Flacco start. I'm actually kind of excited to see him starting. I think having Joe Flacco as a starter will give us like a little more better chance to win than Mike White. Because Mike White, he's all right, but he doesn't have an arm. So like we're very limited with Mike White. We can't really like push the ball down the field. We literally had to play like the intermediate game or the short passing game. But with Flacco, we basically just open the whole playbook with him. And not only that too, he's very familiar with the whole AFC North division. Like he obviously he was in Baltimore, so for like from his rookie year for like I think it was like 10 years, I don't exactly remember. And then after the Ravens, then he plays the Browns, Bengals, and maybe the Steelers. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what's going on with Zach Wilson's knee. But that's basically my take on it.
All right. Well, we'll see how things go there. They're going to be starting without Zach Wilson in week one. They'll be going with Joe Flacco. But in the meantime, so we will get to your Jets, and you can talk all about them and what you think, how you think they're going to do this season. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about opening night. So the Bills beat the Los Angeles Rams 31-10, and Matt Stafford, not his best game. So 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 63 passer rating. Was sacked 7 times. Meanwhile, Josh Allen had himself a game, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns to 2 picks, 112 passer rating. So, guys, we'll start with you, Aaron. What's the biggest takeaway you have from this matchup?
So the biggest takeaway is that the Bills, they can play with any team on any given night. They're a very explosive team on offense and defense. They have a lot of good guys out there. They got Micah Hyde. They got Tre'Davious White, which I don't believe he played last night. Yeah, no, he didn't. He was on that pup list. And they got the new linebacker that was on the Rams last year, Von Miller, who made himself known last night, got a sack in Stafford. But so like I think the bigger takeaway is that I think the Bills are actually a legitimate Super Bowl contending team.
All right. Yeah. I mean, the Bills, the last 2 matchups essentially was so they hung around with the Chiefs and they nearly beat them with Gabriel Davis nearly just putting the team on his back along with Josh Allen. They did it again during this past game. So yeah, that's a good take. Honestly, that team really can hang around with anybody, and they proved tonight that they're Super Bowl contenders. But CJ, what do you think?
I personally believe that this matchup says a lot more about Buffalo than it does about LA. This basically cements Buffalo as, we say, oh, the division is theirs to lose, the conference. No. At this point in time, maybe it's a bit of an overreaction, but you could say the whole thing, perhaps the Super Bowl, is theirs to lose. They're the odds-on favorite going in, and they showed it by absolutely thrashing the reigning champs. And that defense was scary. They frustrated Matt Stafford all game. They stuffed Cam Akers. And let's talk about that Rams defense. Aaron Donald was kept pretty quiet. Bobby Wagner got embarrassed when Josh Allen leapt over him for a touchdown. And Jalen Ramsey was burned like a piece of toast. Buffalo is going to be a scary team. And since we're all fans of AFC East teams, I could tell you I personally am not looking forward to playing them. Now, I'm eager to see if they can keep it up and maybe, like I said, perhaps later in like February, take their first Super Bowl, but they started off on the right foot.
Yeah, so I got to agree there. It says a lot more about the Bills than it does the Rams. See, the thing with the Bills is their Achilles heel going into it, at least projected, is their secondary. So Tre'Davious White is coming off an ACL tear, and I'm forgetting the name of their number 2 corner, but they lost him to free. They lost
Levi
him to
Wallace.
Yeah, Levi Wallace. They lost him to free agency. So, they have a pretty good second. They have a pretty good safety core, but their corners is not looking that good. But last night they proved that maybe that won't matter so much because their front 7 absolutely dominated tonight against a offensive line that's generally pretty good. Von Miller got 2 sacks. The team as a whole got 7 sacks. They got to Matthew Stafford 7 times and forced 2 picks. And did they get any
I think
fumbles?
it was 3 picks.
Yeah, I'm sorry, three picks. So and Tre'Davious White's going to be back. So I question whether or not they even need the depth at all, because they were able to do what they were able to do without really having much in that secondary. I thought the Bills were going to be toast in this game. I did. I had the Rams, and I thought it was mainly because of the secondary. It was going to be a glaring hole this tonight. It really wasn't. I mean, Cooper Kupp got some yards. He got a touchdown, but there's only so much he can do just by himself, especially when Matt Stafford isn't having the best game of his career. And credit to the Bills front 7 for that. And help is going to be on the way for the Bills when Tre'Davious White comes back. So that is definitely something that rose my eyebrows like a lot. Like, this is going to be a really good Bills defense to complement what's already been a great Bills offense. And I'll give another takeaway since no one mentioned Gabriel Davis. This kid is really looking like something, isn't he? So, this guy, he's a touchdown machine. He's always open. He gets yards. This guy's looking, and he's young too. So he's looking like a true wide receiver 2 in that offense. And it could eventually, and maybe I'm turning into a little bit of a homer looking at this, but perhaps he could be a wide receiver 1. Maybe not theirs because they have Stephon Diggs, but like a wide receiver 1 caliber player, something like that down the road. Maybe I want to pump the brakes. You typically don't want to overreact to week 1, but I mean, he's looked pretty good the past few games he's played in. The past few actual meaningful games, not preseason. The past few games, he's shown up in big moments. So, that's huge for that offense. That looked like where people were wondering, who do they have past Stephon Diggs? I'll tell you who they have past him. They have Gabriel Davis. They have Dawson Knox. And they also have Jamison Crowder. They have Ian McKenzie. They have more past him. But they needed that wide receiver too, and it looks like Gabriel Davis is that guy, and he showed that last night.
Oh yeah. So I got something to add to on this game. So as I saw some some of the game a little last night, it just seems that the Bills, they just seem just like way more hungrier and more of a chip on their shoulder than the Rams do, because the Rams, they just won the Super Bowl, so they're probably just like probably in that celebration phase probably still yet. So they're probably like trying to get the cobwebs off, while the Bills, they just lost like a heartbreaking game. So I think the Bills just seem more motivated to make a statement into the league that we're still here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is a possibility that the Bills do have something to prove. They have a chip on their shoulder, and they didn't lose just one heartbreaker. They lost another one the year prior to the same team. So they really have something to prove, and they've already kind of improved over this offseason. So yeah, I think that's a good point, honestly. But I mean, I think we can all agree the Rams are going to be fine. Like, they have top to bottom, they have a really good team. They're going to beat the teams they need to beat, and they're going to beat some good teams as well. Just the Bills are a team that's out for blood, really. Team that has something to prove. So that is a good point. One thing I also wanted to look at was the Buffalo's rushing situation, because looking at this offseason, looking at how the players were looking at during training camp and preseason, we thought they finally solved their rushing issues. But yet again, Josh Allen was their lead rusher with 56 yards on 10 carries and a touchdown. And we thought, and you guys thought, James Cook was going to emerge as, I sure thought he would. He would emerge as that lead guy. Nope, not at all. He had 1 carry, 2 yards, a fumble. So give him some time, I would say, because it's only week 1. You don't want to overreact. But if Devin Singletary and Zach Moss are your 2 best running backs, then you might be a little in trouble there yet again, because that has been a glaring problem for the Bills in the past few seasons, where they've looked like a contending team, but they just weren't able to take that next step because they're so one-dimensional. I really believed in James Cook, and I still do. I think he can figure things out, but it's a little bit of a problem that he only took 1 snap, got 1 carry, 2 yards, fumble. That's about as bad of a debut as it can get, isn't it? So that's a little bit worrisome for me. Give it some time, but something to monitor.
Yeah, Adam, I 100% agree, and I wasn't really that high on James Cook coming out of Georgia, and I didn't think he was going to light it up like a lot of people thought he would. But I don't think if you're Buffalo, it's necessarily time to panic yet. I mean, a lot of good players have had really rough debuts.
Yeah, like I said, you just got to give it some time. I like James Cook. I think he's going to be a solid player. He may not be Dalvin Cook, but I think he's going to do something. Something other than 1 carry and fumble the ball after 2 yards, but like he's got, like, just with the way that Zach Moss has been carrying the ball, Devin Singletary, they're all decent backs, like they're okay, but you need better than that. Especially with an offense as high-powered as this, you need a little more balance, because somebody's going to learn how to stop that passing attack. Somebody's going to slow it down, and it's going to come down to how you can run the ball. And if those guys who are going to be running the ball are Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, you're in a bit of trouble. And I just wish that James Cook can really step up and be that guy. Maybe not Dalvin Cook, but at least maybe, let's say, 60-70% of what Dalvin Cook is. Then you have a viable rushing attack. But with what you have right now, do you guys have any other takeaways? So I kind of gave 3 right there. Gabriel Davis, the Bills front 7, the Bills rushing game. What about with the Rams? I know it said a lot about the Bills, but what about the Rams?
Well, what I think about the Rams is that I feel like I don't know. I think the part of the reason why they lost yesterday is because they got like a whole bunch of new players, like star players, so they're still probably trying to gel. Because Allen Robinson, he was basically like a no show. You only had like one catch for like 12 yards. So I think that's probably had to do with it. But yeah, Matthew Stafford, he just didn't look like a Super Bowl like quarterback last night. He looked like he was like still in that honeymoon phase. Just like I don't know. He just didn't look right. He had one of those Stafford games where he just throws a bunch of picks and it's over. But that's basically all I got with the Rams.
Yeah, that's kind of the same here. Like like it really doesn't say much about the Rams. Like I think they're going to be okay, but like I don't know. Like there's not. I mean, the Bills just came in there and punched him in the mouth, and I'd like to see how things go for both teams going forward. But we do need to change gears. I want to get to some of the rest of the Week 1 matchups coming up here. Each of us are going to touch on one matchup that intrigues us the most going into Week 1. That'll be next. Don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 Dean Radio. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medieros. Special guest, Aaron Wise. All right, we're going to get into the rest of Week 1. So we kind of dissected our opening night here with Bills Rams. So I want to get into the rest of the matchups and kind of preview what's about to come. So we're each going to touch on the most intriguing matchups. So I'll start with Aaron. So which one are you looking at the most?
So I honestly have a Jet fan, so I'm gonna go with the Jets and Ravens. And the reason why I think this matchup is probably most intriguing is because CJ Mosley, he's gonna be facing his former team, so he's probably gonna have some revenge. Joe Flacco, especially, I think he's gonna be really hyped up, get himself nice juiced up right before the game. After back in 2018, when he got benched for Lamar Jackson. So I think it's a chip on his shoulder to make a statement that he's still like a decent quarterback yet in this league, which he has the opportunity to do this Sunday. I think if I'm gonna be straight honest, yeah, I think the Ravens are probably gonna win this game. I think it's gonna be close up, but I just think the Ravens are gonna win because they're more experienced. They have a more experienced coach. They know how to finish games, and yeah. So I think the way how the Jets can win this game is how you want to say it is make Lamar Jackson throw the ball. Don't let him run, scramble all over. Like if that happens, it's gonna be a long afternoon. We need to stop the run and make him throw the ball. If we do that, I think we have a good chance to win this game. But we just let Lamar Jackson get like 10 carries over 100 yards and have his running backs get like about 100 yards. It's gonna be a long afternoon. And the defense is gonna be on the field way too long, and they're gonna give up some big plays.
Yeah, and I think the way you keep that offense throwing the ball is that the Jets, they have to go in there and they have to throw themselves, get ahead. The defense really needs to get to Lamar Jackson and try to get him to throw more. Give him, if he gets outside the pocket, I agree. And also one advantage I would say you guys have, the Jets, is that you guys have your Jets don't so the Ravens running backs are all kind of hurt. Both both J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are coming off. Was it both ACL tears? They both tore their ACLs, correct? So
I thought J.K. Dobbins. I think he might have had Achilles. I think.
No, I think it was an ACL.
It was something bad. I know it was
something season ending that will probably leak into this season. So that's my point, is that, especially with running backs, like it's going to take some time for them to heal. But CJ, most intriguing matchup. CJ, you're muted.
Oh, thank you.
I do it all the time, man.
Yeah. So for me, Adam, the most intriguing matchup has got to be the Rams. No. So not the Rams, the Raiders and the Chargers rematch. Now, we all know how the last time, they played together ended, right? Brandon Staley, as the kids say, fumbled the bag and cost his team the game by calling that foolish timeout, where if it ended in a tie, both teams would go to the playoffs. And that, really ticked off the Raiders, and they went ahead and won. So now you have the Chargers, who were like deemed the winners of the offseason. They had that massive spending spree in, free agency, and they have like all these big names added to their team and a decent draft to boot. And then you have the Raiders, who have a new head coach and like a top 3 receiver in Devontae Adams. And that, is going to be interesting, because we all know that the AFC West is the most stacked division. And that could be like an early tell of who might be the team to beat there. Because right now it's literally anyone's race.
Yeah, so you picked a divisional game, and I'm going to go a similar route and go with the matchup of the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. And the reason for this is because, it's always looked like, for the most part, in that NFC North division, that you just kind of knew that the Packers would come out on top most of the time. There would be a couple of years where it would be, the Bears in 2018 or the Vikings in, 2017? It was 2017. Yeah. And like since then, so this past offseason was interesting with them. So the Packers, they came off a heartbreaking loss at home to the 49ers in an upset. And then you lose Devontae Adams, your top target. You didn't really replace him with really much. On top of that, you lost your best pass rusher in Zadarius Smith. And looking at the Vikings, that team has improved dramatically, at least on the defensive side of the ball. And their offensive scheme is bound to improve with a more offensive oriented head coach in Kevin O'Connell. So we're looking at a potential power shift here in the NFC North here. And like, I still wonder, maybe the Packers still have a fighting chance here. They managed to get Aaron Rodgers back, and they may not be the air show Aaron Rodgers led Packers that they used to have, but they have a couple good running backs in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon who can turn it, and they have a great defense. They can kind of turn it into a defense and running the ball scheme, and then they have Aaron Rodgers game managing. Now, I don't know who in that Packers organization managed to convince Rodgers to take on that role, but props to whoever did that. Whoever pulled that off to get Aaron Rodgers to put his ego aside and say, look, we need you to do this. We're going to work on this scheme, do more of a conservative defense and running the ball. If they can pull that off and actually be competitive, and Rodgers is able to, I'll get a lot more respect for that guy, because he's very stat oriented. So it'd be interesting to see that. And so it's going to be a very competitive game. I just think it's going to be that type of game. They always are. It's a division, 2 arch rivals. NFC North rivalries are very tough. So I'm really intrigued to see this. I think it's going to be a good matchup.
Oh yeah. So I got one thing to add with the Packers and Vikings. Yeah. I think personally, I think the Packers can be fine. I just think because like, I don't know, it's Aaron Rodgers. Like he's one of those quarterbacks that he can make any of his receivers look good, and maybe potentially turn to like a number one wide receiver. I think Alan Lazard. I think he's gonna have a really good year this year. He just seems like that one receiver that's gonna surprise everybody. I think this year.
Yeah. Well, CJ, you have some thoughts.
Yeah, it's just, and this is kind of a spoiler, but if you have anyone in your fantasy team, like at least on offense, playing in that Green Bay, Minnesota game, I would say start them because those games are always a shootout, and I expect this one to be more of the same.
Yeah. So this will be an interesting one. I can't wait to see it. Look, I love Aaron Rodgers, and I don't love Aaron Rodgers. I don't like him. I'm more of a Brady guy, but I do respect him. But look, I don't doubt that Aaron Rodgers can make this team better and make him more competitive. Just there's only so much you can do with so few targets. And as a Patriots fan, when I was looking at the 2018 Patriots, the 2019 Patriots, like Brady was all right, and they were good. But that 2018 team won on more of a defense and running the ball scheme. And the 2019 team wasn't even able to do that. They couldn't win the Super Bowl. They couldn't even get past the wild card round. And then he goes to a team, completely stacked offense with all these weapons. They were able to win the Super Bowl again. So, like, even the most elite of elite quarterbacks need something. They need something. And I just don't think Rodgers has any of that. He has some good weapons on other parts of the field. They have a great defense that looks like maybe the best I've ever seen the Green Bay Packers at. The rushing game for them looks awesome. Just their defense, they're not going to be an air show. And if they're competitive, it's going to be because of other reasons than Rodgers throwing the ball. I just think that's just my 2 cents. But we do need to get moving, and we are going to get to our very first Fumblerooski fantasy fix. So we're going to give you some fantasy football stardom situms. That's next. You are listening to the Fumblerooski podcast. Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Fans Only Sports Network. Adam Wright here with CJ Medieros, special guest Aaron Wise. So we've reached our very first Fumblerooski fantasy fix. We're going to give you fantasy football advice and all of that. Mainly stardom situms for today because just there's not much else to do for going into week one. But you guys will get your fantasy advice. And shout out to all of you guys who joined the Fumblerooski Listeners League. You guys will get your final scores mentioned on our Tuesday episodes, and we'll give you some maybe fantasy PSAs, something else there. But for our Friday episodes, it's just right to do stardom situms. That's what you guys want going into the week. But without further ado, we'll start out with quarterback. So you want to start Matt Ryan at Houston, Jameis Winston at Atlanta. So you want to start those guys. For situms for quarterbacks, you want to sit Kirk Cousins versus Green Bay. That Green Bay defense is lethal, and I'm not sure about Kirk Cousins' ability to work his way through that. Also sit Jared Goff versus Philly. Moving on to the running backs, we've got Elijah Moore, who you want to start, along with Rashad Penny. So, Elijah Mitchell at Chicago, and then you want to start Rashad Penny versus Denver. Running back sits go with Damian Pierce versus Indy. That's a very all right. That's a very popular start for a lot of people. Just I'm not sure about Houston's offensive line, and plus going up against Indianapolis, that's a vicious front seven for them. And sit Ezekiel Elliott versus Tampa. So, and then wide receivers, you want to start Michael Pittman at Houston, Deontay Johnson at Cincinnati, and sits for wide receivers. You want to sit Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Philadelphia, and sit Elijah Moore versus Baltimore. Now, going on to tight ends, you want to start Cole Kmet versus San Francisco, and you want to start Noah Fant versus Denver. Tight end sits. We are going to sit Hunter Henry at Miami, and we're going to sit Pat Freiermuth at Cincinnati. All right, so that has been your Fumblerooski Fantasy Fix. Up next, we're going to touch on Lamar Jackson and his contract troubles. Starting to, those are it's going to be prolonged for a little bit. So we'll get to that. You are listening to the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
You are listening to the Fumblerooski podcast. Adam Wright, CJ Medieros, special guest Aaron Wise. All right, so just hours ago, Lamar Jackson has ended contract talks with Baltimore for the season. So he gave the deadline of Friday, and they could not get a contract done. So that is it, done. And they're going to try and figure something out in the offseason when he becomes a unrestricted free agent. So he's going to play on his fifth year on the fifth year of his deal, and they're going to see if they can get something done. But so what do you guys think of this deal? This non-deal? I'll start with you, Aaron.
Okay, so this is what I think. What I personally think, if I'm Lamar Jackson, I would not play until you get the contract done because it only takes like one bad hit, and it could ruin everything, like all your money chances. It's like the way he plays the game. He's not like Tom Brady or like Aaron Rodgers that just sits around the pocket, or maybe even Drew Brees, sits in the pocket and just sling passes. He throws the ball, but he also runs and doesn't really slide really that much. So it's like, I don't know. It's just like it's not really a great situation. So if I was him, I would try like sit and not play at all until you get the contract done. So then like that'll put more pressure on Baltimore to get it done. But that's what I think on this contract.
Yeah, I mean you have a point there, because he is a running quarterback, and they tend to get prone to injuries. And if they can't get a deal done, then he gets hurt, then he's really screwed. Then he misses his payday at that point. But CJ, what are your thoughts?
Now, if you've listened to the show before, you know how I feel about running quarterbacks. They're awesome in the short term, but for a long-term solution, I get a little iffy on that. And Lamar, as you know, is coming off an injury. And will that bleed over into this season? I don't know. But when healthy, he is in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. I mean, he's won the MVP, for crying out loud. But then you start thinking, he's going to need a payday. You really don't have too much around him on offense other than like Mark Andrews and a carousel of hurt running backs. And I'm not saying I agree, but I understand the Ravens' hesitancy to, ink him to a big deal right away. It's just, I mean, they have a lot to sort out. They have to get him weapons. They really have to, they're going to have to keep him upright. And I think that you got to get a deal done this offseason, because I don't know how he's going to react playing on the franchise tag. Because make no mistake, this is the NFL. It's the quarterback-driven league. And if your quarterback's unhappy, they will leave. And so for Baltimore, the clock starts ticking now.
All right. So looking at this situation, at least through the Ravens standpoint, I don't think it's as dire as we might think, because there's always the franchise tag to extend this thing and buy them some more time, maybe next off season, to get a deal done. And at that point, if you're not able to get a deal done by the end of that franchise tag, then you might be screwed, because there's no way in hell Lamar Jackson is playing under another franchise tag after that. I mean, at that point, you're looking at 7 years under contract with Baltimore without getting a deal done. At that point, if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm getting my ass out of there. But looking at it from Lamar Jackson, I mean, that's a good point, is that like he could get hurt at any point. And he's already been starting to get a couple injuries in the past couple of seasons. And if he gets hurt and loses all his value, then that's a big problem. That's a big problem for Lamar Jackson. It'd be kind of beneficial for Baltimore in a scummy way, because then they can pay him less, and then they have all the leverage. But I mean, you can understand why Lamar Jackson had so much, why he had so much urgency to get something done, because you never know when you could get hurt. But through Baltimore's eyes, it's not as bad as people might think. I think at worst they get a deal done after this offseason. They slap the franchise tag on him, they figure something out, and then he's a Baltimore Raven for the long term. But I don't know. I just don't see him hitting the open market and then going somewhere else. I just don't. I don't think he's going to get traded. I think they're going to figure this out after this offseason, and I think that's what's going to happen. So
Yeah,
that's what's up.
Perhaps.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Wait, so like, here's my take on it. So like, I got another take on it. I don't know. I think part of the reason why the Ravens front office are probably not franchise tagging him or something to a long-term deal, because they have a backup quarterback behind them, Tyler Huntley, who plays similar like Lamar Jackson. So Lamar Jackson doesn't really like the team. They're like, all right, then we got Tyler Huntley, which Tyler Huntley, even though he didn't really win games really last year, but he was still pretty competitive. And I don't know, like Lamar Jackson, he's already like liking Dolphins tweets already, which I'm not really gonna take that into too much consideration yet, but that's also kind of iffy. Which honestly though, I don't know. I do agree with you, Adam, that I don't see Lamar Jackson hitting an open market, because that's very rare for quarterbacks like around his age, because that never happens really. It's pretty rare, because they usually franchise tags him, or they just sign him like long term. But that's what I think on this Ravens situation.
Yeah, I just what I foresee happening is that they're going to just slap the franchise tag on him, and then they get a deal done, and he never hits the open market, and then they have everything figured out. So that's just, I don't think it's as big a deal as people think. I think that's what's going to happen. But if they don't get a deal done after putting the franchise tag on, there's going to be some drama starting there. Jackson's going to be pissed, and he's probably going to leave in free agency. And at that point, he's spent 6 seasons in the open with the Ravens, and he hasn't been paid. 6 seasons in the NFL, a couple Pro Bowls, obviously an All-Pro, a unanimous league MVP, and has not been paid. That's just, I mean, I have my issues with Lamar Jackson and his play style. I don't believe it's a sustainable way to play, but the kid's been balling. There's really no two ways about it. And he does deserve to get paid because of that. If you play well, you should be paid. So I could understand why Lamar is a little unhappy right now. But I think that something's going to get done. And I think it's going to get done fairly soon. But if you guys don't have any other takes on this, I would like to move on to Aaron's guest segment. So do you guys have any other thoughts?
Oh yeah. I got one more thought. I think like the person for me, I think the Ravens should do is that they need to actually give Lamar Jackson legit weapons because I think if you do that, then I don't think Lamar Jackson won't be as impelled to wanting to run all the time. You know what I mean? It will kind of like limit his running. I mean, he will still run because that's what he does. He runs, but I think it will help him a lot to make it balanced. So he's not always trying to like if Mark Andrews not open, he basically has to run. Kind of like how Josh Allen, like he's big. Obviously, he's bigger than Lamar Jackson, but they have an offense so he can just throw the ball so he doesn't have to run all the time. Trying to help balance, you know what I mean? So he doesn't get banged up, hurt all the time because already with Lamar Jackson, he already has an ankle injury. He was out for like the rest of the season. So, you know, like you never know with quarterbacks with running quarterbacks, especially like Michael Vick. He was always hurt all the time. Can never stay on the field. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't think that running quarterbacks really last that long in the NFL, really, because as soon as you get like a big injury when your athleticism's gone, then you're basically kind of toast.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I'm not big on rushing quarterbacks. They never last. I mean, look at Michael Vick. Look at even Cam Newton.
RG3.
RG3 is a big example. There's one that I'm thinking. Colin Kaepernick, I guess you could mention, is one that didn't really last. Early in his career, he had some success, but as defenses kind of started to figure him out, and as his career went on, he kind of
fade away.
Things didn't go as planned, and he's unfortunately not in the league anymore. But yeah, I would like to move on to Aaron's guest segment. So we are going to hit on the New York Jets. So Aaron's a big Jets fan. In fact, his email has Jets fan in front of it. Got to let people know. So we're going to get to that. How he thinks that season is going to go. Very young team, very up and coming. So we'll talk about that next. Don't go anywhere. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
You are listening to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medieros, special guest Aaron Wise. So welcome to the guest segment of our show, sponsored by Secret Weapon Consulting for business plans, secret shoppers, bar spotting, server and manager training, and so much more. Visit www.secretweaponconsulting.com. So Aaron is going to give us his guest segment where he's going to talk about the Jets and how he thinks they're going to do this season. So what do you got, Aaron?
So I'm a Jet fan. I've been a Jet fan since 2009 when I was a young kid. And personally, for me, as a Jet fan, I just want to make the playoffs. It'll be, I don't know, like that's my goal as a fan. I just want to at least make the playoffs because, being person, I'm kind of tired of every single year when we start 0-4. Then all the Jet fans and stuff, we're already talking about draft season. We're going to draft in the first round, and basically the season's already over before we really did anything, and then. End of the season, we started showing up a little bit and then beat some good teams somehow. But I think this year's a big year for the Jets because it's really going to show if I think personally, like if Zach Wilson is going to be the guy, even though he's not going to be playing right away, unfortunately, what happened in that Philly game when he decided that he wanted to do some a little highlight reel, I guess, he spun out and hurt his knee. And speaking of Zach Wilson, I know it's just his second year, but I'm already getting some concerns. I'm not going to say he's going to be a bust. I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong for once by my team, but I don't know. This is like his second knee injury in the same knee. This is actually getting kind of concerning. Because last year he hurt himself against the Patriots last year when he got rammed in by, I think it was the Hightower guy. He hit him below the knees, and then he was out for like 4 weeks. And then before the season started this year, he tore his meniscus. Unfortunately, the original we thought it was ACL tear, which thank goodness it was no ACL tear. It was just a meniscus. But now, since he has 2 knee injuries in the same knee, it only takes one move and then keep his ACL this time. Like we got kind of lucky, but a meniscus, like a torn meniscus, is not. It's still pretty bad. But so I think as the Jets though, like our defense got better. We actually got some corners that actually like could stay with receivers. We got the 4th overall pick, Sauce Gardner. I think he's gonna have a big year this year. He's really gonna be tested this year a lot with a lot of good wide receivers. Like he has to face Stephon Diggs twice, Tyreek Hill, and I can't remember who else. Like there's a whole bunch. Like the Jets' schedule is pretty tough, so I'm not really expecting them to make the playoffs this year. I want to be wrong. I want them to make the playoffs, but I think the Jets will be maybe a best case scenario, a 8-win team, maybe 9-win team, but like most likely they probably win like 5-6 games this year realistically. I just don't think the Jets are quite there yet. I think the Jets will probably steal some games that the Jets aren't supposed to win because that usually what happens every year. Like in 2020, which I'm not gonna lie, I wanted the Jets to go 0-16 so we get Trevor Lawrence because I'm a Trevor Lawrence fan, but we didn't get him. And then we beat the Rams and the Browns. And then last year we beat the Bengals. That game was insane. Like I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that Mike White game. But I think the Jets are gonna go like 6-11. Personally, the schedule is I don't know. Like the schedule is just way too brutal. It's just I don't see them. I don't really see them doing a whole lot. But the biggest thing I want the Jets to do, they need to be more competitive. They need to be more competitive because like I've seen other teams around the league, like the Lions, for example. Even though they were a bad team, but they were like in the game. They were like in games to the 4th quarter. Like they were like it was like a 7-point game or a 3-point game. They just couldn't get it done because they're a young team. While the Jets, they're usually like way out of it. Like they're like down by 20 and it's over, and then we're just like, okay, well, next game. So yeah, the Jets, they need to learn how to start winning football games. Because me personally, the Jet fan, I've seen too many disappointments, too many of this. Back in 2015, that was the last time the Jets were actually like a respectable team. And I don't know, personally for me, as a Jet fan, if the Jets want respect to the league, they got to beat some good teams. Like especially this week against Ravens, they're a good team. You know they missed the playoffs, but they're a good team. Like if we want the NFL to take it seriously, we got to beat some good teams and actually be competitive. Like if we want to be feared, we actually got to like come out and fight instead of basically playing, I'd say, one good quarter and then we're like done. So that's basically my take on the Jets. But they just need to be watchable this time. They need to be watchable. This last few years, they haven't really been, especially 2020. That was probably the worst season I've ever seen as a Jet fan. That was miserable. The Luke Falk games, oh my goodness, that was awful. That was awful. That was like the worst. That's one of the worst football I ever watched. It was like worse than high school football at times. But and then we had Adam Gase. I don't really want to get too much with Adam Gase, but he was bad. I already knew he was bad, but yeah, that's my take on the Jets this year. I think 6-11 is a fair estimate. I think. I would like to be wrong. I want to be wrong for once by my team. I want to be wrong. I want to say 8-10-0 or something. But I know that's not going to happen. But that's basically my take on the Jets. So.
Yeah, I mean, this year might not be the year for them. Probably not. They could could make the playoffs. I see him having a little bit better record than 6-11 though. Maybe like, let's say 7-10, 8-9, maybe something around there, because they do have some young talent. Just it's too early for them. But a couple of years down the road, I could certainly see them at least, becoming competitive and maybe even contenders. So I have liked what new GM Joe Douglas has done with the team. His drafts have been pretty good since he's taken over, and we'll just have to see how things go. Zach Wilson, this is going to be a year where he's going to have to prove that he's better than he was last year, because that was a tough year for him. And of course, the infamous 3-year window for a quarterback you draft, year 3 is going to be big for him. Year 3 is going to be big for them and that franchise, because it determines whether or not they invest in the right guy, or if they wasted 3 years of their franchise over a guy who turns out couldn't play. So that's going to be interesting. But CJ.
Yeah, when I look at the New York Jets, I see a team that had a really good offseason, and let's face it, they won the draft. Now, the pieces are slowly coming into place on paper, but I think we all know that on paper versus actual, game speed, very different. And I was never really high on Zach Wilson, but he's starting to have an offense form around him, so I'm a little excited for what he can do when he actually comes back. I obviously don't think it's their year this year, but if Robert Saleh is as good as advertised, there's no reason why the Jets couldn't develop some of these young players into some real superstars.
Yeah, we'll have to see how things go with them. A lot of good young talent they have going around there, and a great draft they had. I mean, if all these players pan out, this is going to be great. They got a great looking corner with the number 4 pick. They got a good looking wide receiver with the number 10 it was, the number 10 pick. And then at, 31, 32, they got Jermaine Johnson as a pass rusher. So good looking draft for them. If they all pan out, then that's good for the Jets' future. And on top of the young guys who they already have. And they also drafted Breece Hall, who would be a first-round running back if we were drafting a few years ago. So great stuff going all around for the Jets. Hopefully it pans out for them, and we'll see what happens. But we do have to end the show here. So do you guys have any last-minute thoughts before we end?
Oh yeah. I got one more thing. I got a little bit more about the Jets, just a little bit. So me personally, like for Zach Wilson, like there's really like no excuses why he can't pan out now, because like the Jets, they're actually doing everything right that they're supposed to do that they didn't do with Sam Darnold, because in let's say a 2018 when we drafted him, me personally, I don't think they should have even started him. I think they should have just sat him down and just let him watch Josh McCown. We had Teddy Bridgewater on a roster, but then we traded right before the season for some reason. And then basically Sam Darnold, he had like no receivers whatsoever. So we kind of started him on the wrong foot, no line, no running backs. And then they fired Todd Bowles. And when you fire a coach like that, then you got to learn a new offense, new scheme, new everything. And then the Jets, they went on a spending spree, which that kind of failed. They didn't really pan out. Then we drafted we somehow hired a worse head coach in Todd Bowles somehow, and Adam Gase, and then we kind of know how that went. It got to the point that Sam Darnold, he was pretty much toast. But then after we got rid of Adam Gase, we basically clean house, new everything, new players and everything. We got everybody here year one, even a new quarterback year one. So I think the Jets are actually doing a good job here. So I think the excuses are basically almost out the window for Zach Wilson. He actually needs to start playing, and start showing he could be something. Which I know, even though he was a rookie last year, but he actually did have similar rookie stats as Josh Allen. Which Zach Wilson threw like 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a little over 2,000 yards, while Josh Allen had around that stat line too. He had 10 touchdowns, 12 picks, and a little over 2,000 yards. So I mean, even though both quarterbacks are completely different players, but I don't know. I kind of look at that stat line, and for me as a Jet fan, that makes me feel a little better coming into the season. But yeah, that's all I got left with the Jets.
Yeah, he's gonna have to. He's definitely gonna have to show some growth in the next 2 seasons in order for them to for him to prove himself. We can't have a Daniel Jones type situation where they're bringing him back after year 4, where he's clearly shown that he's not the guy. But thank you for joining us, Aaron. Pleasure to have you on the show. Great insight on the Jets. We love hearing your opinions. Let us know if you want to come back on the show. We'd love to have you again. But yeah, thanks a lot. It was great. But anyways, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for listening to us. Be sure to tune into us live Tuesdays and Fridays at 7:30. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have all our episodes available on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and so much more. Also, be sure to follow our Instagram at Fumblerooski_podcast to keep up with our podcast and the latest coverage on the NFL. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Over and out.